Hello, and welcome to Juno's live session. At this time, all participants are in a listen-only mode. If you have a question at any time during the presentation, please type it into the Q&A box on your screen. Now, I would like to turn it over the floor over to Igor Bergman.
Hey, thanks a lot, and thanks everybody for attending. This is Igor Bergman. I will do the first presentation, first part of the today's presentation on Junos Network Analytics. And then we have a little bit of a change on the front slide here. Instead of Manny, we have with us the product line manager, Krishnan Manjari, and he's going to do the demo at the end. So if we look at the simple agenda for today, we'll go first into a little bit of a challenges and discussion about big data analytics in a network environment, overview of the products that consist of Junos Network Analytics, and then I will hand it over to Krishnan to do a quick use case demo, probably the last 20 minutes, and we'll leave last 10, 15 minutes for Q&A session. So we'll hang on the call and we'll take your questions, which you can actually, as we go through the presentation, you can pop them into the Q&A window on your left side of the presentation side, or you can hold to the end and get a phone. So without further discussion, I will start moving relatively quickly here. We have a packed agenda, as I said today, given the time frame. And in the first few minutes, I'll talk a little bit about the challenges here and what's going on in the network environment and why we're discussing this whole network analytics with a customer base in this day. So in essence, everybody knows that the traffic on service provider networks is continuing to grow at a very, very rapid pace. It's not a news, I think, that it's driven by the combination of trends like we have never seen before, such as mobility, big data, consumer demand over the top video, and to throw a couple of numbers at you at this point, it's just got some data from the major analysts. Let's say 50 billion devices will connect to the wireless network by 2020. 60% of the broadband traffic will be streaming video by 2015. So in 2 years, 60% of the traffic, broadband traffic, will be video. And public IT spending will surpass 100 billion in 2016. So if you look at this whole discussion about the network trends and challenges, you know, the numbers and the environment around us really supports that discussion. These incredible changes, I think, present the challenges for operators because they simply can't afford to invest in their networks at the same pace at which the traffic is growing. Clearly, what is needed is a more intelligent and knowledgeable approach to the network investment, and to move to a more informed approach to network decision making. Service providers need more information on how their network operates, what are the customers doing, where is traffic going, what types of traffic are driving demand. And a good analogy here is what one of my colleagues proposed the other day is your personal bank account. If you want to trim the expenses, you want to make sure to get a good use out of your money and the bandwidth on a budget that you have, you must first know what you're spending money. How much would you save if you cancel whatever your gym membership or cut your power bills and things like that? The challenge is today that operators don't see or don't have the same visibility into the networks that you have into your checking accounts. So many times they can't tell which customers are profitable, which ones are at risk of defecting perhaps to competitors, or who might be a valuable prospect or to target. The reporting tools are they're used today that simply don't provide the visibility into this type of information. So you just don't have a visibility into a network to make a significant and important business decision. So moving to the next slide, this just kind of provides a little bit of the background on a big data discussion. We can see some insights into looking at what other industries are doing from the big data perspective. It has been around, big data has been around for several years now, and it has been applied in industry and as diverse as consumer retail to government organizations and so forth. If you look at the benefits of the analytics, the crunching, the huge amount of data to identify trends, opportunities, and challenges, it has a very, very significant and well-proven benefits to the industry where it has been applied. So retailers are able to increase the operating margins by 60% by getting a clear picture of their inventory and efficiency, staffing, budgeting, and things like that. And hundreds of billions in savings for government and healthcare are hard to argue with, and this is a great discussion that is going on today, as a matter of fact, if you read the newspapers. So the obvious question is, could service providers, operators benefit in the same way by applying the big data analytics technologies to the network-generated data? Juniper believes so, obviously, and so do others. And the answer is overwhelmingly yes. You know, you create a huge amount of data, you have created a huge amount of traffic. You should be able to optimize and monetize based on that information. So that's exactly what we're bringing to the market with a suite of products and what we're discussing today. We're bringing big data analytics for service provider to service provider networks. The Junos Network Analytics portfolio we're going to talk about today will let operators apply those big data models, as we discussed, to the data generated in their networks. Before we get into the specifics of the products and how kind of conclude this high-level strategy discussion, I just want to take a moment and what might be helpful to take a step back to see where does this fit within a Juniper broader vision and strategy. And many of you are likely aware of Juniper vision for SDN. And our SDN strategy is outlined in more detail in many places, so I won't spend a lot of time here. However, at a high level, the vision is based on 6 general principles and corresponding 4 steps to help our customer transition to software-defined networks and a single licensing model. And so the network analytics are the key part of the first step in Juniper roadmap to the SDN. What we are saying, you know, before and as you are getting into this transition and take advantage what IDC considered to be a almost $4 billion opportunity by 2016 with an SDN, we want to make sure that the things that you do and how you change your network, how you're becoming more dynamic, more flexible, and more elastic, you actually have a visibility and understanding and impact on your customer, on your network, on the traffic, and you can optimize the operations before you get into that process or as you're getting into the process. So having the centralized management and analytics capability will help service providers to gain visibility and insight that can guide the decision-making, obviously. Second, can uncover the new revenue opportunities by getting you a good picture of the environment. And lastly, but not least importantly, will definitely help identify the cost-saving methods in the transition process and as you adopt the service software-defined networks. Ultimately, in the future, we see many possibilities for tying together these analytics with network management to drive automated network decisions and action. However, we can discuss it, some different opportunity in the future. At this point, I just want to go quickly into the network analytics and products and start drilling down into a little bit more details. So here's what we're bringing to the network to the markets today. As you can see here, basically from left to right, the Junos Network Analytics is a comprehensive solution that spans from the network data extraction on the left all the way to the decision-making dashboard to the right. So working from the left side, we can see Junos Analytics relies on the data from the network. This is specifically flow data, routing data, and routing configuration. And large operator network can generate, as we know, hundreds of billions of transactions per day and per hour, as a matter of fact. And this information needs to be processed and analyzed. Junos Network Analytics does this via the high-power analytics engine, which can be distributed at the edge of the network or deployed in a centralized fashion. This is really, really important point. There are 2 different deployment models here. We're talking about the analytics layer, which is second column from the left. The analytics engine basically processes the data it collects from the devices in a near real time and feeds it to the visual dashboards for the operators. Which dashboards they see, it depends on which products you are using. And the goal, obviously, for the company for that particular dashboard, we offer two basic solutions, as you can see here. It's a BizReflex, a business dashboard that provides into customers, tiers, and prospects, and we'll drill down into a little bit more detail a little bit later. And the NetReflex that provides an operational dashboard with a key insight into a network usage, capacity, traffic trends, and things like that. It basically helps the operators to make more informed decisions about the capacity planning, link utilization, MPLS, VPNs, and things like that. From the audience perspective, you can really quickly see here we're talking about two different audiences and two different purposes. BizReflex, sales, marketing, and business-driven audience that is focused on monetization, and NetReflex, the network operations tool, for that audience that focuses on the network optimization itself. And a couple of things then, to discuss as we walking through this overview is what is wrong today. There are big data solutions for the networks today, and customers trying to use them, but there are some serious, severe problems that we found as we start going through this process and talking to other customers. What we figure out is that simply the solution providers today, they're not designed for service provider network environment. They basically follow a process that extracts raw data from the network, transport it to the storage array for later analysis. Given the tremendous amount of data, as we mentioned a little bit before, a service provider generates, this approach requires a significant storage and transport resources for the data. At some later point, all this data is queried and report is generated, but it's often done several days or weeks after the event is first recorded, making it more difficult to make a near real-time decision. So the problem is, you analyze, you monitor, and you report on the event that happened yesterday. So two core problems with this solution here. You can see it really, really quickly, really fast. First, it's too expensive. You store all the data. It's going to cost your arm and a leg. In addition to the fact that you don't have a flexible and scalable solution. And the second thing is the point of the network analytics is in connected world is the fact that we need to make a decision fast and based on fact. With this traditional store-first solution, it will take days, as I mentioned, to analyze the data and produce the reports, which is just simply too old, too late, and too stale to make real-time decisions. So what do we do to help that process? We have a couple of products that I'm going to drill down in a little bit of details before I hand over to Christian for a demo so you can see the products. A first product, if you remember that slide with the four verticals, on the top that's focused on business decision making, it's a BizReflex. And I would emphasize that this is in our point of view, the first ever network analytics solution that brings big data analytics to network business decision makers. So there are plenty of things that helps with the operations, that helps with the optimization. We are yet to find a product here with our customers that actually can offer this value to this particular audience. So targeted users for this tool are marketers, sales, marketing organizations, go-to-market planning teams, and other business-oriented groups inside the service provider teams. So the main purpose of this solution is pretty simple. Monetize the network. See how can you make more money from three perspectives. New customer acquisition, see where the prospects are. Sustain the current customer base. That means see what the current customers are doing and how can you improve the customer service, the level of quality, so you sustain them and see which ones are at risk for defecting. And how do we improve the ARPU, or average revenue per user, on a current installed customer base? Those three things are critical in order for you to grow the business, become more successful, and improve into a competitive environment. And in essence, BizReflex lets you identify the high-value prospects for those sales initiatives that marketing and sales team might be running. And you can also see, as I said, those at-risk customers that I had mentioned before. The next product in that line is the NetReflex. The NetReflex has two flavors to be kind of quickly and upfront. There's an IP and MPLS, and focus on the NetReflex solution as a difference between the BizReflex is the optimization of network and network operation. So BizReflex monetization, NetReflex optimization. Both flavors, as I mentioned, leverage the same analytics engine and this process-first architecture, and I'm sure Krishna is going to talk a little bit about that. And I have a couple of slides. But as we have mentioned before, this model significantly improves scalability, reduces the cost, and enables the real-time data available in terms of the analysis about the networks. So running off that engine, just the same as the BizReflex, NetReflex IP, first flavor lets you view and segment the traffic trends to help you plan out for congestion, to eliminate the errors, monitor the quality of service or quality of experience. In essence, it helps you make decisions for capacity planning, routing, caching, and other optimization exercises. The second flavor of the NetReflex, the MPLS, the name itself tells you, it enables you to monitor the performance of the MPLS network, provide the capacity demands and the usage of each VPN, and Christian will show that through a demo. You can see exactly who is using what, why, how, and in which time frame, and provides the visibility into P2P or provider edge to provider edge router pairs, and obviously classes of service. One thing that is common to both flavors, as I said multiple times, NetReflex focuses on optimization side of the house. The third thing that plays a big role into our network management solution is the instrumentation itself. So Juniper routers create a summarized flow records called the J-Flow, and probably 95% of our customers are actually using that. So J-Flow is a summary of records that gives a service provider the ability to collect the data on packet flows, aggregate the data, export the data to the external devices, and so forth. It basically enables usage-based accounting, traffic profiling, traffic engineering, intrusion detection, service level agreements, and things like that. To give you an idea of our strengths over there, J-Flow running, I will give you a little bit geeky here, J-Flow running on MSNPC cards and MX960, Juniper MX960 router can produce or handle 120 million flows a second, or 14.4 million packets per second, and 64 gigabits per second. I want to make sure here that I understand, while we base this solution on the richness of the data that we provide through the J-Flow and performance of our instrumentation, I want to make sure that everybody understands that this is not a exercise, and while we would like you to use all Juniper hardware in your environment, we know that's not the case, and Junos Network Analytics supports also the third-party instrumentation with the obvious fallout of loss of performance and perhaps enrichment of the information in some cases. But Junos Network Analytics is not Juniper router only solution. I just want to make sure that everybody is pretty clear on that. We do prefer sticking with our instrumentation and the routers itself. Last 2 minutes before I go to a demo, I just want to go quickly and give you a quick overview of process first environment that I mentioned a couple of times before. And if you look at the first step, traditionally, in standard or classic, or I would almost call it legacy big data solution, they don't work really well in a service provider environment. It's basically the first thing, the data extracted from the network and stored in some kind of storage array. The second thing, the user itself says, hey, I need to see, something in terms of reporting, whether it's a planning exercise or troubleshooting or something like that. So basically what happens is he creates the query through the reporting engine, which then cranks the storage, data is presented, and user basically receives the report. So the issue here is pretty simple. You can see in this diagram, from the time the data is stored to the time that actually user can get a report itself. And as I said, I emphasize the report because most of the time those are not a deep network analysis with a pretty good capability like Junos Network Analytics offers. It can take days and weeks. And the storage size that needs to support this solution is budget-wise and size-wise quite significant. The difference between that model and analyzed model, it's pretty simple. So basically you have J-Flow, DPI, BGP, NetFlow, and other protocols to get the data. And as I said, wanted to add a couple of standard protocols here on the slide just to make sure that we're not talking about unique J-Flow only solution here. And basically what's happening here is data is not only extracted, but actually analyzed in a real time. So what happens is once when the user looks at the dashboard itself, the data is already there. And a subset of that analyzed data is then stored. So data is collected, data is analyzed, and dashboard being populated. As that's being done, those analyzed data points are being stored. So very simple benefits here. It's optimization of the storage, real-time visibility, or near real-time visibility at any time, and ability to scale and pull literally an analytics report at will run 3 weeks later. Here's basically the end of a kind of a slide deck here. I will offer a handover to Christian to get deep into the decks and to the product itself and go through a few use cases. The idea, time permitting, will go in a couple of BizReflex use cases and touch up on the NetReflex and IP and MPLS. Christian, you ready to take over?
Yes. Thanks, Igor. Can you see my desktop?
Yes, you're ready to go. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Igor, for the great description. My name is Krishnan Manjeri. I'm a product manager with several products that I manage. One of them is the Guavus Analytics it's basically that Junos Network Analytics from our partnership. And today I want to start off with the BizReflex product line, and Igor gave us a very good overview of what are the top use cases, what are the benefits that customers get out of it, and why Juniper believes analytics is the future, and we want to move forward with it, and what is our plan for it. So to jump straight into the demo, I want to first start with the BizReflex product line. It's one of the coolest products that we are bringing into market, and this is primarily focused on what we call as business analytics. By business analytics, we mean that's primarily focused on increasing revenue and enabling greater profitability for the customers, for the carriers, and we will see why and how that can be accomplished in this presentation. The first of the use cases that we want to see is prospecting. Most carriers today they're always faced with a challenge on saying, okay, who are these top prospects that I need to target? How do I have the best return on investment for my sales and marketing budget? Do I go after every single one And is it possible to have a more focused marketing effort? And if so, which of those prospects can bring the greatest chance of conversions for me? So that is the idea behind this particular product line. And feel free to stop me. Is the Q&A at the end, Igor, or is it?
Yes, we'll keep the Q&A for the end.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks. So in the prospects tab, as you can see, these are all real data, but it's actually been obfuscated with anonymous names for obvious reasons. As you can see that these prospects are listed on this side, and you have several sets of information available, which includes the traffic rate for the ingress, and you have the top intermediary, you have the intermediary percentage traffic, and so on. So let me explain what this actually means in terms of terminologies. Prospects are the people, the business customers. BizReflex is actually focused on business customers, so a tier 1 carrier who has business customers like Juniper and who have other, who actually peer with other carriers, which include, other tier 1 carriers who have their own set of customers. So the prospects are the ones who are not your own customers. So you want to go after the most, profitable set of prospects. This particular tool primarily derives a lot of data from J-Flow. It has routing information, and it has information, BGP, IS-IS information, interface information, and so on. The reason I bring that up is that this is not a pure reporting tool. This is an analytics tool, and that's a classic difference between what we already have in the market, like traditional solutions and status quo solutions that Igor talked about, and what we are bringing into the market now, and why it's so different. It's also currently what the carriers are doing is more focused on visuals. Now we are looking at things which can provide insights and greater predictability. And let's see how we can do it for this particular use case. One of the in this particular tool, as you can see right now, I'm trying to edit a filter. There are different ways to filter. An intermediary could be a tier 1 carrier there. And I want to focus on the amount of data traffic that's actually received from a particular prospect. And in here, I want to say, let's say, 60% of traffic is actually coming from that intermediary. I add a, actually, let me just filter this further. Let's say 50%. Add a filter. And I also say I want a traffic which is pretty significant, because why? Because that goes back to the graph that Igor pointed out, wherein you want to focus on people who actually have the greatest amount of interactions within your customer base, and also sending the most tonnage of data. In this case, let's say I would say it's about people who have about 8 gigabits per second, and I add a filter there, and I say apply filters. So that actually drills down into 2 particular prospects that would be interesting to me. I can look at 2 of them. Let's say I first focus on the one who is sending the most traffic, in terms of the gigs that I receive, and I drill down here. As you can see in the bottom half, you have further details wherein it tells you about what type of links they are using. And I'll explain why that's important at a later stage. And you also see the POPs that it is coming in. Keep in mind the POPs are actually derived from air miles, which is actually from the airports. So let's say we drill down into the prospect. Sorry, it's taking a little time to load. As you can see, this particular prospect, 23828, is actually interacting with through peer 471 and sending about 8.34 gigs, and it's reaching about 396 of the carrier's customer base. That's interesting, and let me explain why that's interesting. The data in here actually gives you 3 pieces of three very valuable tools. One, it tells you who to target, so you have a more focused sales and marketing effort. The second thing it allows you to do is that you can actually take this data and go to the particular prospect and go talk to him and say that you're reaching 396 of my customers. By coming on to the carrier's network, you're basically improving the SLA to this many number of customers that you already have. So a content provider like, let's say, YouTube or some CDN provider or whoever it is would be very interested in doing that because SLA is what they get paid for. So that's the second piece of information. The third piece of information that you already have is in terms of the tonnage that the traffic actually is sent. So with this information, you can actually go into the into your finance department where you actually say, let's say for traditionally you've been charging $1 or so for the traffic that is being transported. Now in here, it probably gives you a greater incentive to go tell them that by bringing additional pieces of this traffic over to the network, your overall revenue is actually significantly growing. And the reason for this is simple, right? The moment you have traffic actually traversing a peering network, you get only paid for one leg of that. So, which means that only the customers who are actually consuming only one leg you get paid. When you actually bring the prospect over to the network, you basically see twice that. So the revenue per bit for the same bits that you're actually transporting, the revenue per bit actually goes up. So that is a factor that needs to be taken into account. Further, you also know the portion of the traffic that this particular prospect is sending to you and how it's actually impacting your network and the growth and revenue that it can produce. So this particular tool actually addresses the case of sales and marketing focused on prospecting the best set of prospects. The second thing I want to actually address in here, you also have a trend analysis here, which is a very important thing because in any analytic tool, it's not enough that you have a snapshot view. You want to be having a view over a long period of time. The BizReflex, depending on the customer's need, we could do 8 days or so of raw storage, and it's again completely flexible. It's a direct proportion of the SAN storage that you have. You could do as much, and you can also do 6 months, 8 months sort of processed storage that many of our customers have asked for. So it's a direct function of that. The other use case that I would like to highlight is specifically targeted at customers. So why is this very important? Because you also want to know who are the most profitable customers and how do you categorize somebody who is most profitable. On the bottom portion, you see a distribution called on-net and off-net traffic. On-net traffic is traffic which remains on the carrier's network, and off-net traffic is traffic which leaves the network. So like I've mentioned previously, anything which is going on a peering thing, you get only paid on one side of the link. So ideally, it would be best that to have a customer who is having most of this traffic on net. That's one piece of the puzzle, right? And the second piece of the puzzle is that you also want most of the traffic to be local. Why? Because the regional and the continental and the transcontinental links are very expensive. So you want to retain it for very valuable uses. So you want to have a customer who is all local and using local traffic and also having significant on-net traffic, which means that he's interacting primarily with all other customers within your network. So that's the idea behind this. That is the most profitable customers. Now, on the flip side of it, you want to look at customers who are at risk. The flip side is directly where you talk about customers who are significantly off-net, which means he's constantly accessing the peers network for different purposes. And the second thing that they are also doing is that they are using maybe not the local links, a different link, and so on. So why that is important is because it gives some clues to the carriers. The carriers can actually determine at that point that why is this customer actually accessing the peers service? Is it because he's actually interested in a CDN service? Is it because the kind of POPs that the carrier is actually providing the customer is not efficient enough? Is there a different POP that you can offer? What is the reason? I mean, at that point, it's a question where the tool can give you enough information that the sales and marketing people can use that information to get better insights so that they can have a more predictable offering to these customer bases. Here is, again, as you can see, you can sort this based on off-net traffic. You can sort it based on the ingress-egress traffic. And what you could do at that point is actually do a drill down. And this is a very interesting graph that you see in here. The graph basically consolidates all the customers here. The BR demo is basically the carrier. I mean, it could be any of the tier 1, tier 2 sort of carriers. The customer is coming in, and you have customers here. Now, for a tier 1 carrier, the customer could be either another business customer or it could be a tier 2 provider. Now, and then the behind customer are the people who are connected to the tier 2 provider. And this is another very interesting dimension to this, wherein you could actually use this insight to go target these behind customers people as well. Now, the interesting piece in here is that you could actually get further information in terms of what is the customer here, I mean, why is he accessing it, and what kind of links he's using it, and so on. So it gives you further information to go behind this particular customer to determine why is he at risk and why is he accessing the peers network. The third piece of the use case that Igor actually talked about was peers. Now, why is this important? I mean, as we all know, I mean, we have seen this big conflict between Level 3 and Comcast, where Level 3 actually dumped nearly three times as much more traffic in certain scenarios. Now, whether this was, there are scenarios where carriers do not know what was happening in their network. It's important that a certain set of carrier traffic and the peering ratios be monitored periodically. In many cases, it's unintentional, and it's done because of the nature of the peering relationships and nature of the POPs that they have. So it is a certain thing that different carriers are always interested in monitoring and want to pursue and keep a good tab on. So this particular tab is primarily targeted as peering, fair peering agreements. Now, one of the key things in fair peering agreements is what is called as an IO ratio. The IO ratio determines the ratio between the traffic, which is actually ingress and egress. Ideally, you would want an IO ratio which is close to 1, but that alone isn't sufficient. Just because you have a very small IO ratio doesn't mean alone is enough. Now, or if you have a very high IO ratio, it's not enough to raise the alarm bells. It's also important to tie it to what is called the ingress and egress traffic. Now, in this scenario, this is already pre-sorted, where you see peer 229 is actually having an IO ratio of 16.82 with this particular carrier, and he's actually sending about 48.80 gigs of traffic. And why is that interesting? And now we want to drill down further. You can actually click on this particular link. You again see the same sort of graph. You see the AS-PATs, etc. And further, what you could do is you can pick one of the top customers and you can drill down further. I'll explain where I'm going with this. This is basically a graph which shows, the type of links which are actually sent, the type of links that are being used here. You have the regional, you have the continental, you have the transatlantic, and so on. As you can see that the traffic which is actually being sent between from the customer 373 to peer 229 which means this particular carrier is primarily using local links, whereas peer 229 is essentially using the continental links. Now, that alone might say, okay, there is probably sort of a hot potato routing that is happening here. So you can have enough data here where you can actually go drill down further. For instance, in here you can see the POP that is ingressing into the carrier from this particular peer is in Ashburn, and it's actually going into Miami, which is 57.02. Now, if you go drill down further, it's basically Miami to Miami is actually going in here. So what this tells you is that this particular peer has a POP in Miami. But in the case of traffic from Ashburn, that was directly handed off in Ashburn itself into the carrier's ingress POP, and the carrier actually used its continental link, as you can see, to carry it over to Miami. So this is a very important tool where hot potato routing is kind of an apparent thing. Now, it is a point where you can actually start a conversation with the other carrier, the other peer, to understand if it is truly violation of fair peering agreement, or is it something else. In addition, the BizReflex product line actually provides a variety of reports, and you can actually do a whole bunch of configurations, etc. in here. And the BizReflex product line in some customer bases have also been used for, because of the richness of data, has also been used for exporting it to network planning tools, because although that is not the primary purpose of this, the richness of data is so much that the network planning is only as good as the kind of inputs that you get in, and this is helps it in that respect. Now, I'll explain more about network planning as I jump into the NetReflex MPLS VPN product, which is a nice segue into network planning. Okay. So the NetReflex MPLS VPN product, what does it do? The primary purpose of the NetReflex MPLS VPN is operational analytics. It's primarily used by network operators for network planning. So you might ask me, what is the big deal? I mean, today network planning happens, and people use tools like Wandle and Keratin or whatever. So the question, the key difference is, all of these planning tools are only as good as the input that you get into it. As I speak to many of our Tier 1 carriers, as you know, Juniper is deployed across the globe here. I was shocked to see that many of these people actually have homegrown tools, and they also use things like Excel for it. Now, the problem with this is that it actually gives you a guess estimates. They basically estimate what kind of traffic. They use SNMP. They used an estimate of what kind of traffic is going on the network. They have absolutely no clue on the visibility that is there in the network. They don't know what is running on the network. They don't know where the customer VPNs are coming in. They don't know what kind of classes of service are used by the customers, what kind of tonnage you get, what kind of bit rates are run on these things. Nothing. Absolutely no. And they get only, I would say, a very myopic view of this. And that actually means your inputs into these planning tools are very short-sighted. Because of that, the planning that you actually make is not reliable, and that's why frequently this planning needs to be, doesn't meet the actual expected growth. Further, you don't have a trend analysis on these things. And the third thing you also need for a very effective planning is a multi-dimensional analysis, which means that you need to be able to get things like, okay, which customers' VPNs consume the most tonnage? What is the peak bit rate for each VPN? What is the distribution of tonnage for a customer by PE pairs? What is the distribution of tonnage for a customer by class of service? And I can flip it around and say, give me the top tonnage used by the current class of service. Who are the top consumers of real-time class of service? Which PEP pairs are they using? And you know what? The best part of this application is that it does it in near real time, which is less than an hour's worth of time. And it's doing all this in big data, which means that it's scalable in a massive way. So all of these actually put this effective as nothing comparable for this in a planning and a business analytics piece. That's exactly what this shows. It shows, customers here, all these are fictitious things made up. I mean, doesn't refer to actually Citibank or anything, but the fact is that you could actually drill down there. You could get PE distribution for this. What are the classes of service for all the PEs there, and what type of classes of service, what is the average bit rate, what is the volume in there, and so on. And you can actually drill down further on this, and you can actually go into things like, what is the trend analysis for these things? What are the PE to classes of service? What is the average bit rate, and so on. Going forward, what we will be including in this as well is what is the class of service which has been consistently decreasing? What is the tonnage in the VPN that we would actually increase? That's in the next version, which is not in this particular demo, but it is part of this as well. If you go, we do the same analysis on the PE, and here's a cool thing that we could actually do in the PE. We would also have things like, what are the heat maps in here? What kind of utilization? I'm speaking to a major tier 1 carrier who doesn't know the utilization that's happening in their network on a PE pair. They do not know what is the VPN usage. What kind of classes of service are there? And I cannot drill down on this further for these people. So in here, this gives you all of those metrics, but I can switch between them, examine it in greater detail. And you can also go into each of those things and break it down on the class of service and VPN. This is what I mean by multi-dimensional analysis. Again, you could do the same thing for class of service. Now it's a different dimension to the same problem and looking at it in a different way. And you can look at it in terms of the links that are being used and so on. I guess I need to switch quickly into the, so again, this is basically on the links, the P's that it traverses, and again, the classes of service traversed on those particular links. And again, you can go into VPNs, what are those things, what kind of average bitrate that you get on class of service and volume of data. So let me quickly switch over to the NetReflex IP product line. This is the NetReflex IP product line. It's basically focused on the IP networks. This particular map is what we call as topology analysis. Excuse me. The topology analysis is actually a heat map. There is a very interesting anecdote where one of the carriers had absolutely no clue that there was a dark fiber between two specific locations, and they were actually planning on installing a newer fiber and newer link there, which this was one of the key things that they were able to get it. And in here, just like what we saw in the class of service, you can actually drill it down based on the utilization that you would see. And you can actually further drill down into, what are the distributions that I see between two different locations. You could say from Boston to San Jose to Boston, and this can be done based on POPs, or you can actually do it based on AS demands. And this is very interesting to some of our carriers who are actually using CDN services and so on. So again, I can actually go down further and drill it down into further details, and you can actually drill it down on trend analysis for these things and further details. Again, all of this can actually be exported to devices like Wanderer for accurate network planning. The traffic analysis is just another different view where you can actually see bytes, tonnages on these things and the packets that are transported in here. Between different locations. You can actually, again, do the trend analysis for these things. Overall, it does provide significant amount of reports and statistics that can be used to garnish the overall visuals that you get here. With that, I think I'm done with the demos. I was going to transfer this over to Igor.
Yeah, thanks, Christian. Yeah, please stop sharing. I'll put the last slide, and we can go into we have a few questions on PAP. First, while you're still there, Christian, one technical question. The question came in: are the level 2 VPNs also supported with this tool?
Sorry, can you repeat it again?
The question was, are the level 2 VPNs also supported?
Oh, the layer 2 VPNs are currently coming. It should be out by the Q3 this time frame.
Okay, cool. I have a couple of other questions that I got lined out there more in a business/marketing direction, and the first one was about the product availability. When is the product available? The product is available today. It has been launched about a month ago. We have a number of customers actually using the product in the production already. But yes, the both products are actually both products, BizReflex, NetReflex, and the 2 flavors of the NetReflex are available today. The second question was about a couple of things that we have mentioned during the presentation was is perhaps for you, Christian, is about the deployment. And the question is, this solution deployed in a centralized fashion or distributed, and where does the analytics engine run? I will let you take on that if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's fine. So what is the second part of the question? Sorry, what does it run or where does it run?
Well, where does it run? So is this deployed on in centralized fashion or distributed? And the second part of the question, where does the analytics engine run?
Correct. So that's a great question. So primarily, there are 2 deployment models for the Junos Network Analytics. The deployment models are centralized and distributed. Now, again, the differences between the centralized and distributed are that in the case of a centralized model, the collectors, aggregators, the presentations, and all of that is actually localized in a central location. It's primarily done because that particular customer base was pretty small, and the network is actually pretty small, and therefore you can actually do that, and that's primarily what it is. In the case of a distributed model, what happens is basically you have the collectors and the aggregators, and maybe in some scenarios the compute nodes located in the distributed model, and in some cases the compute is actually located in the central location, and you also have the presentation, etc., done in the central location. Now that again depends on the size of the network, so it depends on what that customer is looking for, and either of the models actually fit, and I've seen both in scenarios. The second question was more related to how is it actually deployed. It's primarily deployed on x86 blade servers, and we have qualified it on HP servers. Of course, we also do on Dell servers as well, and there are a whole bunch of servers that we can work on. And the way it is actually done is primarily focused on, the sizing of the blades, etc., is done based on the flows per second that are exported into the Junos Network Analytics, and that's how we size it. And it again depends on the customer base and that specific BOMs and the specifications for those blade servers can be provided as well. That's it, Igor. Just transfer to you.
Yes, thank you. The last question I have lined up here is, does this work only with Juniper devices, or does it support third-party elements as well? So yeah, this supports Juniper and third-party network elements across the board. So we consume a dedicated instrumentation such as J-Flow and Juniper devices and the other standard protocols as we went through the presentation. So we do accept standard protocols. We accept the third-party instrumentation. We accept the Juniper instrumentation such as J-Flow routing tables. In specific, obviously, what we consider to be a significant advantage here is J-Flow instrumentation on the Juniper devices will provide a little bit richer data and obviously a significantly higher performance, giving the product performance itself on the J-Flow side. I don't see any more questions at this time, so I think as a matter of fact, we are. There is another question. I'm sorry. Before we close, we have 3 or 4 more minutes. Question for you, Christian. Which server OS types are supported for the analytics engine?
Right. So the servers are actually specific. The specifications are provided based on these are generic x86 blade servers, but again, there are some specifications in terms of the memory, etc., that's needed. That's basically sized according to the customer's specific needs. So we go through a questionnaire on what the customer is exporting into it and how much of data they want to store and so on, so we can recommend the storage as well on it. Regarding the OS, everything, this comes bundled with, standard CentOS-based system, so you don't really need to worry about it. So the overall platform, Junos Network Analytics, when it's installed, it's actually done as it's all in one package.
Excellent. Thanks a lot. We came to the end of the time and ran through all the questions, so I would leave it to a closure at this point. Thanks for attending. I believe the recording will be sent to the attendees and will be made available on Juniper.net, and also through the last slide you can see the web sources and contacts where you can learn a little bit more about Junos Network Analytics. Thanks a lot.